Hello, and welcome to Icohedric Games. Today, I am commentating a replay of a battle which I played, and it's just so epic I had to share it with the world. I am outnumbered 3-1, as you can see. Look at how many men the enemy has, and look at how many men I have. I'm red if you haven't noticed. There's also a cinematic version of this if you just want the good stuff. You know, if you want to feel the epic action of all of this. So, here we have the opening maneuvers. I've positioned up 2 walls of troops in choke points. For example, we have here, we're zooming out over this way to see that they're sending troops that direction, back towards that wall. And over here we have troops going towards my first wall, right there. So basically the whole idea behind this is to keep them from entering the city by keeping them at a choke point. Now, the way choke points work is it makes it so you can have the exact same number of troops fighting as the enemy. So whoever has the more powerful troops wins, rather than having numbers be the ultimate decider. So I've got my skirmishers shooting, throwing fire javelins at the enemy, as well as my legionaries are attacking with their javelins. So they clash, and we have some fighting up here. So basically, right now we have 3 units of legionaries, all like level 3 or so, and they're fighting 3 units of Wiggles. Now, if you don't know anything about the Wiggles, what you do need to learn is that they're spearmen, which makes them inherently less powerful than the legionaries, because the legionaries are swordsmen. Swordsmen are good against spearmen when in melee. Now, the other thing is, Wiggles are medium spear infantry. So, medium is going to survive quite less amounts of time than the than heavy or very heavy as the legionaries are. So we have medium spear infantry versus very heavy melee infantry. Already you can see a huge power difference between the two, and here you have the enemy is starting to retreat from this front line battle. Over here we have the enemy first clashing with this defensive line, and as you'll see, it'll come to the nearly the same result. So you have here more fighting, more units retreating. There's still fighting here, nothing new. So the enemy's reinforcements have caught on and are moving to attack, and they do have 3 units of legionaries, one of which they send to the right to attack, and 2 of which go up onto the hill. Now, against my much more powerful legionaries, because they are higher level, because they've fought before. The more you fight, the more experience you get. Like, I mean, a novice isn't going to last as long as a as an experienced fighter. So we have more troops coming this way. There's their unit of legionaries, and they're sending off some missile cavalry and a lot of missile units. More missile units. So I've also moved troops to support. So we've got here coming up in front of us is a unit of Wigglers, and then another unit of Wigglers, and then a third unit of Wigglers. And here we have I think that's another unit of Wigglers. And there are several units of legionaries coming up. 2, if I remember correctly. Oh, no, wait, 3, sorry. 1, 2, and 3. I'm behind a whole legion of range units. So, these men engage my men, as you can see down there, in a big giant clump, apparently. I've brought in another unit here. I've since decided that they're not going to attack from the flank that you saw at the beginning of the movie, and instead they're just attacking those 2 positions, which turns out to be correct. So I've sent more units to support the other units. And so you can see here another unit of Wigglers clashing with my men, going into melee. Still more fighting. Here come more units this way. There is another unit of Wigglers and a unit of horsemen. Now back over here, we have continued fighting, sustained fighting. A unit of cavalry actually breaks through my forces and actually engages my missiles. So I move my legionaries to my reserve legionaries to get those cavalry off me. See how they've gone through the legionaries and through the missile units. But they're basically stuck. They can't do much except go back, and that's when my men engage them and they continue fighting. So we have fighting, and I've moved my other unit of legionaries to fight the cavalry, wipe them out, keep them behind my lines, punish them from coming behind my lines. We've got the first bits of missile fire from the enemy. A unit retreats on the enemy's side. Continued melee. On the other side, we have looks like another unit of cavalry has broken through. Oh wait, no, that's just the retreating enemy unit that already broke through. Still, the line is holding. Line is holding very well. More retreating troops. It's just a big chaotic mess here. My men are holding them back as well as they can, but it won't last forever because, again, they outnumber me 3-1. So this line will not last forever, but I have those reserve troops in place, or almost in place, to protect against that, against any line breaks. On the other side, we have something happening. Okay. More fighting still. Missile cavalry. Missile cavalry has run out of ammo and is attacking. Thankfully, javelin cavalry don't last very long in terms of ammo. And I've moved my men into a second line behind the first, just in case one of them falls. At this point, my original legionary units have been worn down immensely. You can see it no longer looks like a block of formation and looks just like a single line of men fighting. That is what's happened. They've basically killed as many as they can. They've taken massive casualties, though, at this point. And here there's more fighting. I think all three of my units over here have gone into melee, forming a second line behind, preparing for the possibly inevitable breakthrough. Although over here they don't break through. Back here we have just huge numbers of troops. My men have been reduced down to like 30 men left fighting in those two units total between the two. For some reason they aren't attacking my third unit over there. Probably it's because it's more powerful than the others two, but I'm not entirely sure. Another unit of cavalry has broken through. It's pretty easy for cavalry units to break through at this point. On the other side, we have still more melee fighting, retreating horsemen. Oh wait, no, the melee's been completed. I had to move up a unit of legionaries to continue the to push him back. So I've moved that unit of legionaries up into the battle, and now they're being moved back. I'm sure. No, they're still there. They'll probably move back soon. My men are being pounded by missile fire. Although I believe there are more men coming in to go into melee, so that's a good thing. Over here, my men break. I mean, gotta respect it. They have 30 men total between the two units. Going from 120 men to 17 is not good by any means in any unit. So my second line has engaged the enemy. The one remaining unit in the first line I attack with on the flank because the enemy has not done it. The enemy is easily broken, and my men just run out, attack. On the other side, we have attacking ranged units in melee, which is, if you haven't noticed, is not good for ranged units, but it's their last resort should they run out of ammo. But honestly, I would not have used my ranged units in melee in any cases. I mean, it's never gone well for me before. But when the enemy does it, hey, whatever. Okay, so now I'm moving my general's unit, which is my one unit of cavalry, over to the other side of the battlefield. You can see I've done unit cam, and you can see from the perspective of the unit. And you can look right over there, and that's where the big mass of the enemy is. Okay, I set them up so that they can move and attack. Basically, what's happening over here is they're just pounding me on both sides with missile units, with missiles. So I've got my formed forces in a formation known as the testudo. Testudo is Latin for tortoise. So they bring all their shields up above their heads, and the men on the flanks and on the front and the back put their shields out in front. And they form together so that it basically makes a big giant shield against missiles. So people will still die, but at a much slower rate than if they were just being destroyed normally. So we have the devastating impact of a cavalry charge, and I'm just letting those cavalry mop up those units. So all of my legionaries have gone into Testudo. The enemy's still just firing at me, which is, if you haven't noticed, a good tactic if you're facing up against melee only. I've sent my ranged units in to attempt to take it out. My general has since attacked the main block of ranged units. Now the general starts actually losing troops, so I move them off and then attack again. At which point I realize that the general is basically a holding force against those ranged units. Now, ranged units will normally, should melee units get close enough to them, just fall back to a safe distance so they can shoot their shots. So the ranged units, in order to keep them from doing that, I kept my general in them until such time as my men can go in to attack. So you see, I'm moving the general away from the ranged units, and the ranged units are re-engaging my general. Here we go. So my melee units, you can see, are now moving forward, preparing to engage. And we have them clashing, at which point I move my general off of them, because you do not want your general to die. That's one of those things that's bad for your army. Hurts morale like nothing else. So you can see we're going into full melee, just 2 mobs of troops, but it's okay because the legionaries are much, much more powerful in melee than these ranged units will ever be. The only way they could possibly win is if they outnumbered me severely, like 20 to 1 in that cluster, but they don't. They only outnumber me by like 1 or 2 to 1, roughly, at this point in this cluster. Enemies taking massive casualties by this point. We have more units over there. Still the same condition over here. Whenever an enemy ranged unit runs out of missiles, they just go in with them to attack my central unit for some reason, and then get picked off, and then the unit goes back into Testudo. The last of the enemy ranged units over here retreat, and that's when I start moving those to outflank these people. Literally go around the hill and up the back of it, so that the enemy can only go one of 2 ways. Either they can go forward into my previous troops, or backwards into my new troops. So, irate. After this point, they're screwed. They'll just be completely wiped out. I also move my missile units and my general to the center. By this point, all my missile units have run out of ammo. There's nothing much I can do after that. No ammo, no real point of having the missile troops. You saw how badly their missile troops did against me. So we're still in Testudo over here. Giant, massive bodies. collision with another missile unit against not that unit, but the unit to its left. Collision with my center unit. My unit breaks out of Testudo and goes into melee. They're trying, I guess, their hardest, but there's no way they're breaking through that yet. My men continue to move towards the end. Basically, the next section is going to be maneuvering my men to the end. So you can see kind of the pathway they'll take. Over this way. Up this hill. And you can see off in the distance the enemy's troops, and here they come. There are the enemy's troops, just throwing javelin after javelin, slinging sling bullet after sling bullet, and my men just taking it, just standing there taking it in Testudo formation, basically buying time. If my men can get around there, they haven't got a chance, which is what manages to happen. I only have 2 units break and retreat in this entire battle, and I am outnumbered 3-1 at any given point. Although by this time, I've gained the advantage. But they're still pounding me with missiles, so. And it is a long way till the men actually manage to get there. So yeah, some of my men are just dropping dead, but we have the Testudo, so it's not quite as many as normal. Testudo. You can see some of the javelins inside the shields. My men are starting to walk up the back of the hill. Another slow pan over their troops, and it is a huge number of troops. And you can see how far my men have been knocked down. Wow, I've just lost so many men in that group of units that they've been whittled down to at least 1/3 of their original point. But we have my backup units coming, and the first ones are starting to crest the hill, and I believe the enemy is now noticed. More missile troops in melee, routing easily, dying, you know. We have more missile units, and here we go. The end is nigh. So, as I close the gap between the enemy and myself, we have one of 2 places to go. And so they decide peculiarly to go after the stronger set of forces. Not quite sure why. You can see a routing unit collides with mine, whatever. And then missile unit collides, goes into battle. My men collide with their men, and they start fighting a lot. I break my other men out of Testudo. And I start advancing them in the back. At which point, the enemy just completely retreats. The entire set of forces on the enemy retreats. And there we go. Casualties? Well, I took 737 of my 13,000 men, and they took 24,000 or 100 deaths for their 3,700 men. All in all, a noble victory. Thank you for watching, and please, please, please watch the cinematic version. It helps to engross you in the battle experience. Goodbye.